Yesterday I made a video talking about Rainbow Road and predicting what the new one would look like in Mario Kart World while also comparing all the past ones from the past games. But today we're moving on to Bowser's Castle because we actually have a full lap around Bowser's Castle, so we get a pretty good idea of what the track is going to be like. But before we jump into that track, I want to actually go back and look at the past Bowser's Castles and see how they compare to this new one. But first I want to thank today's sponsor, AVerMedia. AVerMedia sent me over tons of their new Go series of products, and these things are crazy for what they pack in this little package. The Core and Elite Go product is a small hub packed into this little cube. You can essentially use it to capture footage and even display footage on TVs or on laptops, whatever you have with you, and you can even use it as a hub for charging other devices at the same time. It's literally a dock-like charging station, video output, and even convenient device all into one, and the display you'll get is 4K 60 Hz, all from this little cube, which is kind of crazy. They also sent over their Extra Go dock station, where it puts your Switch pretty much on a faceless dock, so you can see it the entire time, and you could even use it to play on a television while just holding your Switch still, almost like a Wii U. Now with the Extra Go, it has game capture functionality, which records at 4K 30 frames per second or a smooth 1080p at 120 frames per second. And the dock works with a variety of handheld consoles, not just the Nintendo Switch. And it even comes with a little button on front of the dock in order to record certain gameplay moments, which is really cool. And as you can see, the gameplay is just as smooth and crispy as using an official Nintendo licensed dock. If you're looking to get your hands on one of these awesome products to either use it as a capture device or a charging hub or really whatever you want, the link is in the description down below. And once again, big thanks to AVerMedia for sponsoring today's video. Starting off with Bowser's Castle from the SNES, there were 3 different variations in this game, but for the most part they all looked the same. You were in some type of building, which I guess was supposed to be the castle. As you can see, tons of pillars and arches in the background showing you the sunset and the mountains, but inside this area was a giant flat room with nothing but lava lakes everywhere. Yeah, you would jump over these little yellow boosts in order to get to the end, and watch out for the mini thwomps, or I guess you could say thwimps in this case, which actually is confirmed to be an enemy, as they were trying to smash you as you were going by. But for the most part, it was a pretty basic track overall. Of course, being the first Mario Kart, what did you expect? It wasn't until the next game with Mario Kart 64 where Bowser's Castle was fully realized. It was an actual castle where we would drive through the courtyard and we can even see shrubs that were themed after Bowser, thwomps flying all throughout the hallways and trying to crush you, being an actual really cool obstacle that you had to look out for. Not to mention a final part that would take you to the roof of the castle before taking you back through the finish line. This was actually a really cool Bowser's Castle track, and personally one of my favorites, and I was so glad that it returned in Wii. Now we move on to Super Circuit on the GBA, and there were 4 different variations of Bowser's Castle here, and once again, just like the SNES, it was kind of just upgraded version of that game. It was once again inside of a giant building with the arches and pillars in the background, but this time there were different sections of Bowser's Castle that would go off instead of it being the outside. For instance, you can see giant statues of Bowser in the background and also more bricks and more pillars from the extended background, but for the most part, it was also a pretty basic track. It did seem like each version of Bowser's Castle did change the scenery up a little bit, taking you either higher or lower in the castle. For instance, one of them are actually up on the roof, and the other one's like down in the basement in some type of factory with a giant Bowser bomb in the background. Not sure what's going on here. But Bowser's Castle in Double Dash was probably my favorite growing up. This one was just awesome, and I love the difficulty and the wacky turns that it would have. Once again, bringing back the thwomps down the corridor, but I love the hallways where you can look outside and see this like the creepy trees, the lightning and the storm brewing out there, and the lava everywhere, where you'll take tons of ramps, lots of tight turns, and I love the U-turn section towards the end where there's a giant statue of Bowser firing things at you. I was always such a fan of that part. As you then hit a ramp, it'll take you towards the outside, almost graveyard-like section of the castle, which I really loved. This track was trying to incorporate the outside of the castle a lot more and kind of open it up and take some of the roofs off. And Mario Kart DS would follow that same pattern, once again having the thwomps in the hallways, but also taking the roof off of a lot of the sections so you can see the red and orange sky and all the creepy trees in the background. And it's kind of making you go higher and higher up in the castle until eventually reaching the roof. There's lots of branching paths in different directions that you can go, and I always loved the rotating metal log at the very end, which if you stayed on top, it took you to a better path as well. There was a lot of skill involved in this track, and I once again loved the whole outdoor aesthetic as you're driving on these giant metal plates before going back into the castle. Mario Kart Wii's Bowser Castle does have an outdoor section, but for the most part, it focuses on the inside, where it's tons of twisting, creepy hallways, and once again, giant statues of Bowser firing fireballs at you. This was a pretty good Bowser's Castle, but for some reason, it never did leave a lasting impression on me the way some of the others did. It felt like it took a more safe route compared to what we've seen before, with kind of jumping onto the roof of the castle or lots of other obstacles like tons of thwomps everywhere. It was playing it pretty safe. I did like the end section taking you to like this mud area full of fire geysers, just like Double Dash, but for the most part, it never was one of my favorites, but still is a really good Bowser's Castle track. Mario Kart 7 had a weird Bowser's Castle. I don't know, it's just one of those castles that I think about in my past memory and don't remember ever not liking, but not really liking. It just kind of disappears when I think about it because it was just so random. They of course had to shoe in the gliding and underwater sections because it was the big new mechanic of Mario Kart 7, but they were very strangely added here. Like, I feel like the underwater section didn't really do anything. In fact, it almost felt like it made you move a little slower and easier to control, so I never really ran into any of those leaking lava falls that were coming out of the pipes from above the water. But for the most part, it's just a track that never really stood out to me. Like, I love the outdoor section once again, and I think the gliding section going back into the castle was probably the coolest part, considering the fact that there's branching paths with that. But besides that, there never was a lot to brag about here. I mean, I love the lava falls that were on each side as you flew back into the castle once again, but yeah, there's nothing else here. And then finally we have Mario Kart 8's Bowser's Castle, and this one kind of reminded me of an upgraded version from Mario Kart Wii. You still had your statues of Bowser firing fire at you, this time throwing you up on the side walls in zero gravity. It's hard to tell besides this big turn right here, which was a pretty sharp one, which I really did like. And believe it or not, this statue of Bowser is not shooting fire anymore. He's actually just trying to punch you on two alternate paths, which you have to time accordingly, which I thought was a great addition. You'll then will hit a glide outside of the castle before flying into an outdoor section before wrapping it up. Once again, not my favorite in the series, but still a really well put together one that thankfully doesn't use the underwater mechanics because that felt so forced for something like Bowser's Castle. But Bowser's actual castle here felt like a fortress. This thing looks huge from the outside. Now before I show you full gameplay of the entire track, these are some screenshots taken by Nintendo to give you some really good looks at to what the track looks like from the outside, and it doesn't even look like a castle this time around. It's like a giant metal volcano with a giant Bowser dark cloud coming out the top that's raining fireballs all over the map. I love this design. It's so different, and it's definitely what Bowser's Castle have needed. Like, it almost gives me a Mad Max vibe. You can see the giant engines that are part of the castle towers on the sides of the door that you enter. You can see the red and blue lights, like it's almost like in a battle arena of Bowser's for once, like Bowser's Stadium. And that twisting lava vortex coming up from the top of the volcano is just perfect. That folds into that giant cloud version of Bowser. The inside is more technical. There's lots of monitors and computer systems. It's more like a evil lab, if anything, now. And once again, I love this. It's different. We've seen Bowser's Castle 1,000 times, and to have something like this is really unique. And as you can see, there's a giant grind rail coming from the top of the middle ceiling all the way throughout this hallway, which you'll probably have to wall jump to get up there too. And then we have a screenshot of Bowser right in front of that giant cloud of himself in the background. But let's look at the actual track and talk about what it has to offer. So first, I'm just going to show you the gameplay of the track, and then I'll talk about it piece by piece. Now, so far, it's a little too hard for me to tell if I'm going to like this more than 64's or GameCube's Bowser's Castles, but this one is really cool. I'm not going to lie. I love the whole theming of this, and it just seems like my only big complaint is I wish there were a couple more obstacles. I feel like most of the time you're just driving through hallways. There's a big bend and turn, very similar to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's before jumping back into the castle, and then there's, of course, a giant shoot-up through a tunnel, which is just an automated system. I'm not a big fan of these, but still, it's only for us to get get higher into the cloud portion of the track. But it seems like this track takes tons of inspiration from Cloud Top Cruise from Mario Kart 8, where you're up in the thunder clouds and you have to watch out for the lightning strikes. There's a couple of what looks like to be lava mines, and if you look closely after jumping through Bowser's mouth, which is also really cool, you can see red targets appear on the ground, and this seems to be where those fireballs are going to land, so it gives you a quick heads up before they crash. I also love the branching paths that you'll glide onto. You can choose the left or the right side, and then you'll jump back into Bowser's Castle. But for the most part, I think this is a pretty great Bowser's Castle. It's not perfect. I think they could have done a little bit more in terms of obstacles, but overall, I'm very impressed by the change and the uniqueness this one has. But let me know what you think down below. Do you like this new Bowser's Castle? Do you like the uniqueness and change this time around where it's almost not even a castle? And let me know what your favorite Bowser Castle is in the series. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe before you head out, and I hope you all have a blessed day. And I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.